Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions, where we are critical, not cynical, of the music we listen to. I'm your host, Bryan, and we're going to continue on with this week's theme of horns, checking out music with a horn section. Doesn't necessarily need to be rock or metal, but I think that's still where we're going to be going most of this week. Today, we're going to be looking at the group Thank You Scientist, which I've always been impressed with in the past. The track we're listening to today is My Famed Disappearing Act. Let's see what Thank You Scientist is bringing to the table today. What? Okay, really fun rhythmic stuff.
Don't surrender, so you're so close to the bottom.
Beautiful harmonization in the backgrounds. I still get such a Coheed feel from the vocalist. Beautiful chorus. Just really leaning into these gorgeous chords.
So goddamn determined to break down all barriers. No, they won't hold us down.
Fun modulation.
With this word disaster, I feel it fading faster. No, I won't let you down. No.
Significantly fewer horn in that verse. We had a little bit in that final bar, that was it. I love this playfulness between the guitars and the horns. I wish we would hear that more often. We got a bit of it in the intro, the first verse, and we get it at the end of the choruses.
Don't think you noticed if I was ever gone. Whoa.
Very cool.
All been waiting now for this moment. So come along, lay your worries down.
Beautiful vocal harmonies, but my man, the trumpet on the side, just getting overshadowed in the production.
All been waiting.
All right. Oh, that's the violin getting overshadowed. great guitar solo leading into the lead melody for the pre-chorus. That's fun. Into a variation of the lead into the chorus. Yeah, just really nice bit of variation there in all parts. I like how the horns are continuing on with the "We'll miss you" line against the shred of the guitar. Yeah, there's so much good in there. There's so much good. Um, where do we even start? Let's just start with there's there's two sides of this track that I want to look at primarily, and the first one is the technical side. It doesn't appear often. We get it in our intro, and we get it a little bit in the bridge, and we get it in our outro, and that's kind of it. And our outro is also mirroring some of the ideas from the bridge. So I can't even say that that is a wholly unique section. Um, but these are the moments when they get very playful with rhythm and phrasing. And we'll get like, a beat and a half of ideas and then a hard stop, and then like two beats of ideas and then a hard stop. And we get that that kind of stuff. Like, it's very playful, it's very energetic. And it's just really pushing against ideas of groove and palatability for excitement and energy. And I absolutely love it. It completely takes me off guard every single time and really puts me into their mindset as technical composers. And I get to hear how they choose to push against the grain of typical, melody writing and typical groove writing and stuff like that, and allowing even the drummer to participate in some melodic playing, not really having to sit in the pocket, but playing ideas that fit rhythmically with what the band is doing. Um, and I love these moments so much, but they're far and few between, and for better or worse, right? I wanted more out of it in this track, but there are some times when I feel that a band might overdo it, and at least for this track in particular, it feels like it's designed primarily as a song that is listenable to a wider variety of people. I'm not going to say that this is pop music where it just has an appeal to a very large, wide audience, but a majority of this song is aiming for palatability, which I think Thank You Scientist achieves typically anyways. In the limited exposure I've had to them, I would never call their music abrasive or difficult to listen to. They do push the boundaries a little bit. I think we did listen to a longer track of theirs, which might push the attention span of your average music listener today. But aside from that, the music is very bouncy and bright and poppy and energetic. There's nothing in it that I think would really turn people away on the sound itself. And I think they just continue to lean into that style while still showcasing a little bit of their love for technical flair. And we can hear a bit of this also in the guitar solo. It bounces back and forth between full on shred and allowing the solo to breathe and to introduce these longer melodic lines. And like I said, we get a little bit of both of those. So I appreciate the technical aspect. I think it is a beautiful counter, and the fact that it is used sparingly leaves me wanting more, which is a good thing. Um, but I did want just I wanted some of it in the core song. It honestly felt like if the vocalist is singing, it is a traditional song. If the vocalist is not singing, we can play a little bit. It's like when the teacher leaves the room in a classroom setting and there's no rules anymore. You can do whatever you want. And the teacher comes back though, you got to act like nothing happened. And that's kind of what it feels like. Which is a bit of a shame. I think that they actually I'd have to go back and listen to some of the stuff we've heard before. I think we do have some stuff that marries the two, but this is just not one of them, and it being a single might be the reason for that. We've talked about before that singles have purpose outside of the art. They're also part marketing and promotional tool. So, yeah, that might just be part of it. But yeah, I want to leave it at that. As I did want more technical playing, but I really enjoyed the balance they had, which seemed like opposing ideas. But I hope it makes sense to everybody. On the other side, though, we get the more palatable stuff. We have the chorus, which is a lot of suspended notes with a very beautiful vocal line on top of it, and the occasional vocal harmony to provide some vocalization, just some oohs and ahs behind our lead vocal line. We do have some more moving parts, nothing that's playing, 16th notes, nothing that's moving too quick, but just faster than the whole notes that we're getting in our suspended chords. The violin does it, panned right, and there is, I don't know what horn is doing. It might be the sax, might be the trumpet. Somebody's doing something occasionally pan left. I think it was only in our final chorus though, but I could have just missed it in the first two choruses. Um, but the thing is that these elements are pushed so far down into the mix, they're hard to hear. I think it was the second time we hit the chorus, I actually pushed the headphone closer to my ear because I wanted to hear specifically the violin. I called it a trumpet at the time, but I think it was the violin is doing at the time. But it's just so quiet. I don't. Again, I think this was a palatability decision. If they had raised it up, it would have created a contrasting line to our lead vocals, which would have been very cool counterpoint, but also would have been less typical for a mainstream pop track. And I don't want to say that they're making pop music, but the chorus is leaning towards that. In production aesthetic, in composition, they balance this. Sometimes, at least for my ears, a little for the worse. I do think some of these lines could have had a little bit more oomph in them, and it would have added intentional complexity to the song in a palatable way. What the violin was doing against the vocals was neat, but they made it difficult to hear. If it had been a more prominent voice in the section of the song, I could say that it was an intentional counterpoint, but otherwise it almost sounds like it was noise or an extra layer they weren't too sure about, but they didn't want the vocalist doing nothing or the violinist doing nothing, and so they allowed the part to stay, but kind of removed it through production, and I don't know. It's a weird decision to me because we've already started the song with complexity. And this isn't hyper complex either. This is actually a very standard use of counterpoint. And I'm not saying put it on the same level as the vocals, but just give it another 2 dBs or so. It is beyond quiet. um and I think this is really going to be my only negative is the occasional downplaying of secondary melody lines in the chorus primarily. It doesn't really happen anywhere else. The horns have plenty of volume in our first verse, in our bridge, in our outro, but when it comes to the chorus, it's like the producer or somebody, I don't even know who would have influenced this, but somebody said, I want just chords in the vocals. Everybody else can be pushed down in the mix. I don't care if we hear them or not. All I want is chords and vocals. And that's what ends up being heard. it's just such a strange decision when the rest of the song is so playful and accepting of all of the multiple lines that are present. I don't get the chorus at all. Now, something I really enjoyed was the pre-chorus. It did actually. This is I mentioned I wanted some of the back and forth layering with the vocals. The pre-chorus is that. It is a short-lived four-bar idea that we hear twice. The third time we hear it, we don't get the vocals. The guitar actually takes over the vocal line, which is a neat little variation. But we have our vocalist coming in, and they're doing their lines to bring us into the chorus, and the instruments are doing this really fun call and response between the guitars and the horns, and they're playful with the guitars having a bit more of a legato melody line and the horns having these nice staccato stingers, and we're getting the diversity between those two play styles, and it's just such a well thought out moment that ends with possibly a fermata, possibly a tempo shift, possibly a time signature change. Anyways, there is a modulation going on that makes it feel like we're dragging it out before we land back on the downbeat for our chorus. My guess is we have an entire extra bar there, but I mean, that's also really weird to write a whole bar for a single extra note and then rest. Fermata, well, the fermata wouldn't really carry the rest. I mean, it could. There's a lot of leeway in conducting a fermata. Let me just put it that way. But to probably make this clear without a conductor probably is an extra bar. Maybe a 4/4, maybe a 5/4. It's a very extended moment to the end of the pre-chorus before landing into the chorus, which is neat. It's also not the only time we get some modulation. There is a quick moment in our intro. I think it's the second to last bar before moving into our verse. We had this really nice extended triplet feel through the whole band. Enjoyed that. That was really nice to push against the groovy 4/4 we had working with quarter notes prior to that. Very cool idea. But yeah, this little time modulation here, and it happens every single pre-chorus too. I think it even happens in the vocal less pre-chorus where the guitar takes the lead instead. We get this extended extra bar, which is it's just very neat. It drags it out and feels like it just increases the tension, anticipation. It increases anticipation in the listener because you think we're going to head right into the chorus, and then it just gets dragged out, and you're like, come on, the suspense. There we go. That's the word I want. It's a really nice touch. Not as effective the third time around, but still a nice touch. And that takes us to our bridge, which reintroduces some of the chaotic ideas from our beginning, where we get playful with time again, but also leads us into our guitar solo, which I've already talked about a little bit. Does a fantastic job of marrying these two sides of very technical musicianship and very strong story writing as far as melody goes. And I enjoy it. It's a strong solo, lots of musicianship on display. There is a little bit too much shred for me, but it balances out nicely. And this is much like how I wanted a little more technical playing at the beginning. I want a little less technical playing in the solo. Maybe when we hit the lyrics, it'll make sense because it is called My Famed Disappearing Act, which is a bit of a, we also had all these magician things going on in the music video. So there is a bit of showmanship to the concept so far. I haven't hit the lyrics yet, don't know, but a disappearing act, and then magician stuff and stage magic, and even there's like some Buster Keaton, is that the name of the actor? And some of the stunts that they did in the show, utilizing that old black and white footage of that show. And there's all this spectacle, right? The music video has a lot of spectacle paired against just the band having fun. So if spectacle is a key aspect of the lyrical themes, then the guitar solo being mostly shred with these smaller moments of melodic storytelling makes sense. Because spectacle and shred are just go hand in hand. That is the definition of shred. Is it's spectacled guitar playing. I need to put that on a shirt. Oh man. So what do you do? I'm a spectacled guitar player. Uh, I play in an aggressive music band. I don't know where this stuff comes from. Anyways, yeah, good guitar solo though. Enjoyed it. Might line up the themes. And then coming out of this was really neat because we did some shred and then a little bit of melody playing with the extended breathing moments of the solo, and then a little bit more shred. And then we did another breathing moment in the guitar solo, and it led into the vocal melody line of the pre-chorus. This was just such a smooth transition. I didn't even notice it was happening until the line was familiar, and I was like, wait a second, I've heard this melody before. Where though? And then the instruments come in. We get a second guitar. I don't know, probably double tracked because I think they only have one guitarist doing that call and response with the horns that we get in the pre-chorus. I'm like, that is slick. It is such a good moment. It is a beautiful transition out of the guitar solo into the pre-chorus, a variation of said pre-chorus through the language of the guitar solo. We already introduced the idea of having longer breathing sections of the solo. It's just this time when we got to it, it was hidden there, a transition into the next section. So good. Just so well done. So sneaky. So good. And then we wrap the song up. Um, yeah, just so many good moments. And the thing is, the song is just so bouncy and energetic. Um, oh, there's one thing at the end of the track though that I want to talk about real quick is that there are variations. We do introduce some of the ideas from our intro and our outro. We explore more of these concepts of playing with time and rhythm and phrasing, but instead of just being purely, I don't want to use the word chaotic, but uh or abrasive really, just pushing against time. Here we utilize the we can do anything idea in our outro to bring about a fun beat. They introduced, I think it was the horns exclusively with the drum kit, and they introduced this really fun, like offbeat accented idea for a couple of bars within like these odd phrases, and then we move into an outro guitar solo shredding again. Once again, got to end the track with spectacle. It is a disappearing act, and that should be the end of the show. You should disappear. That's the spectacle. You end your magic show with your biggest trick. Well, here we got to end it with more shred because that's what we got. Um, but yeah, leading up to that, we just explored some really fun ideas, including that really bouncy, like offbeat, accented idea. Just so good. Um, so yeah, there's just a lot of dynamic quality in this track that I think they utilize well. It isn't a volume dynamic, but it is a dynamic of composition, of feelings, of emotions. We have these really beautiful swelling highs that we get in our chorus, and then we get these very energetic, more staccato, rhythmic based ideas in our intro and our verse, and then we get these just raw technical display of showmanship in the solos that we have. Just a beautiful movement through all of these. This is Horns Week, though. The horns should bring some dynamic qualities to the track. How is this different than any other band doing this type of music? And they're kind of not, huh? What did I talk about in here? Uh, the guitar melody, guitar solo, vocals, drumming ideas. Oh, yeah, and how the horns occasionally get to do something with the guitars. Or they get stuff down in the mix. Ugh. And I know this is not meeting it on its own terms. This is applying an exterior theme to the song and analyzing it through said theme. So it's not entirely fair, but being that this is Horns Week, I have to really look at what the horns are bringing to this track, and it's an occasional timbre shift. It is a brightness that only instruments made out of brass can bring, but it's so occasionally used. It is, at least to my mind, an auxiliary function of the song in most cases, where the vocals take the lead or the guitar, and then we have the atmosphere, and then occasionally, or the foundation, and then occasionally we'll have we'll have the horn accents or the horn idea to be played against everything. And if that's not the case, like in the chorus, then the horns just do what everyone else is doing, mostly adding to the atmosphere and doing these suspended notes, but they're stuffed down into the mix because everybody else already has that covered. There aren't too many places in here where I think the horns are actually doing anything exciting. They're not being horns. They are just the part of the band that makes it feel like ska music. And in that way, they tend to fit in that same role that a lot of symphonic metal does with their strings, where it's just to have that orchestral feel. They're not actually bringing anything new to the table. They're playing chords like many of the other guitars are doing, but it sounds like a string section rather than a metal guitar doing it, so it gives it that symphonic vibe. And that's what's happening here. It feels ska because the horns are here, but they're not really adding much that another guitar couldn't. And maybe that's the point. Like I said, if you remove them, it loses the ska feeling. If you replace them with another guitar, you kind of just have another, what is this, alt rock band? I don't know what to classify this if there's no horns in it. um, I mean, in fact, the second verse has no horns at all because it kind of goes into this djenty idea of riding the lowest string on the guitar with rhythmic concepts, and it kind of goes into like a semi breakdown feel, and the brass can't add to that, so they just don't get to do anything at all. And they could have really done a cool variation on this idea. Have the horns do counterpoint with the vocals or something. But every time that I think the horns could have added to the track, it was given to somebody else. Other than those staccato hits that they're just, you get those brass stingers, which is just such a cliche thing to do with the brass, but at least the stinger's something brassy. And that's cool. I like how they utilize that in places. I don't know. I just kind of assume, I mean, I shouldn't have assumed anything. But for Brass Week, I assumed we were going to listen to stuff that really made good use of brass, didn't just include them. It'd be like if we had Strings and Metal Week and we just got a bunch of a bunch of stuff like, you know, I hate to say it, generic symphonic metal, like I just mentioned, where there's some synth strings in the background played on a keyboard to provide chords. I really wanted to hear music where the horns were a strong component of the track, not a second or tertiary thought to the composition, like they feel they are here. And I don't want to say that to diminish Thank You Scientists at all. The track is so good to listen to. You know, when I was listening to it, I was having a jam. I loved it. And I would probably listen to this again. In fact, Thank You Scientist is one of those bands who I want to get around to listening to their albums. There's so much music out there, and I can't get to everything, but it's on the list. Primarily because they have really solid composition. But I was just a little bit disappointed. And the thing is, too, is if they're happy with the composition, good for them. I don't want them to watch this video and be like, oh, we need to add more brass in the next section. I mean, in our next album. If they're happy with the music, if their musicians are happy with their parts, you know, there are some scenes of them on stage having a blast. I am not one to say they're doing it wrong. Not at all. It's just something that I'm hyper focused on because of this week's theme, and I noticed just how little the horns actually got to do on this track. So yeah, we're going to head into the lyrics here, I think. I don't really have any other thoughts outside of just the vocalist sounding like the Coheed vocalist, which I'm pretty sure I've said on all their videos. So I'm not sure that that's too much of a a hot take right now. It's so interesting. I think there's so few people who could pull off the Coheed vocal style, and this dude just nails it. It sounds exactly like I expect. It's very clean. It's very powerful. It's got that range. It's. I would love to hear Thank You Scientist cover a Coheed song, or even do a collab. Oh man, a collab together, that'd be so good. All right, lyrics. Now that I've kind of rambled on a bit, don't surrender though you're so close to the bottom. No, I won't let you down. No, in this war, disaster echoes with their laughter. I won't let you down. All right. So there's an opposition, and they destroy everything while they're laughing. They don't care about the destruction that their war brings, and there's this other person who is very close to the bottom, whatever that might be. And of course, this is probably all metaphorical. There's probably no real war here, but somebody is at their lowest point, ready to give up, whatever that might entail, because their opposition, whoever helps them stay at this low, doesn't care at all. They laugh while this person is in distress. And our vocalist, our narrator says, don't give up. I won't let you down. I'll be here to support you. The bridge says, but I'm about to burn your bridges. Now I know that I don't belong here. I'm about to burn your bridge. Your bridge is to where, though? The bridge that connects to me? The narrator? I'm curious. We'll miss you, everyone. It sure was fun, the times we all had. We'll miss you, everyone, but the time has come, and we'll miss you now. So determined to break down all barriers, I won't hold us down. With this war disaster, I feel it fading faster, but I won't let you down. But I'm about to burn your bridges. I'm real curious about that line. Unless they're saying, I'll burn the bridges that you have to these negative aspects, right? And so the only way that you'll have left is to come with me, and we'll miss everyone that we're burning the bridges towards, right? We'll miss all of these people for whatever reason. Things are fine, but we have other places to go. We have other things to do. At least I hope so. That's the positive view. The other view is that you're down at the bottom. I've tried to help you up, and you don't want my help, so now I'm burning the bridge with you, and that is much more cynical of a take than I want to apply to music like this that is so fun. This feels like an escape, a disappearing act, burning bridges. Okay. Had time to focus. Don't think you'd notice if I was ever gone. We've all been waiting now for this moment, so come along, lay your worries down, and we've all been waiting. So I think that's what it's about. Their friend is not doing well with the acquaintances and friends they have, or even just the issues they have. And so this person's like, you know what? I'm going to help you break ties with all this negativity in your life. You can come with me. It'll be better. We can say goodbye to all those guys. It might have been fun in the past, but it's not fun anymore. Let's go. What's holding you back? He even says, we've been waiting. We've been waiting for you, but now it's time for you to come along with us. I think that's where it's going right there. I'm going to help you break your ties with the negativity and help you find positivity in life. In which case, that is a beautiful message. The spectacle guitar playing doesn't quite have much to tie into that, but I think it also kind of works with the metaphor of the disappearing act, cutting ties with so many people that bring you negativity that you might as well have disappeared from your former life, from the stage you once had. So to go along with the metaphor of the disappearing act of the magic show, we have the spectacle in the guitar work. It's a loose tie, but I think I'm going to roll with it. Those are my thoughts on Thank You Scientists, my famed disappearing act. That's where you guys come in. Hit me up in the comments. Let me know if you enjoyed this or not, anything that stood out to you, anything you'd like to add on to what I said or correct me on. Above the comment section is a description box, and there's a link for Linktree. Takes you to this menu right here. Has links for everything related to the channel, including ways to purchase merch, support the channel in a variety of ways, and find several of the communities around the channel. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell, I greatly appreciate all three of those. We have a special selection today as well. Otherwise, I'll be back tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 p.m. UTC as usual. We'll continue on with this week's theme and check out another special selection. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening whenever you choose to watch my videos.